Okay, so I'm looking at this polynomial here, um, and I know it's x. I've simplified it to be x, but now I'm looking to see what value of x would make the denominator 0. Well, if I divide by 25, right, divide both sides by 25, okay, I get x cubed equals 0, right? 0 divided by 25 is 0. And so that is equal to 0, right? If I take the cubed root, right, the cubed root of 0, x equals 0. So if x is 0, right, if x equals 0, this whole denominator is going to be equal to 0, and that cannot be. So x cannot equal 0. That would be an excluded value. All right, this next one, I have 25 over 25 again, so that's 1, right? And then I've got this negative, so that equals negative. And then now I'm dividing, so I'm going to subtract my exponents. I get x, and that would be 2 minus 1, right? I'm going to take 2 minus 1. And so that's negative x to the 2 minus 1 is 1. All right, so that's equal to just negative x. And then and then now I have to look at my denominator. And so what value of x cannot equal, what value of x is going to make this denominator 25x equal to 0? All right, well, if x is equal to 0, right, if I have a 0 here, 25 times 0 is 0, right? My zero product property says that. So x cannot equal 0. All right, and then now I'm over here, and at number 4, I've got 20 divided by 12. All right, so I want to reduce that, so I can use my alpha y equals, and I get my fraction. So I've got 20 divided by 12. 20 divided by 12. Okay, enter. And I've got 5 thirds. All right, so that reduces to 5 on the top and 3 on the bottom. Okay. Notice I could also do the GCD if I did math num 9 and I did 20 comma 12. All right. The GCD is 4. They both have a factor, a common factor of 4. So that means that we did 20 divided by 4 is 5, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. And then with my n's, I have this one n on top and this 4 n's on the bottom. All right, so if I subtract, all right, I'll have n, and I'll do 1 minus 4, right? And that's negative 3. So this would be n to the negative 3. All right, well, if I have n to the negative 3, remember that to make that positive, it goes into the denominator. So that would be this n to the third is in the denominator. And if you look at this over here, you can see that because there's one n on top, and that's going to cross out with one of these on the bottom. So instead of 4 on the bottom, I have 3 on the bottom. Okay? So 1 minus 4 is negative 3. And then to make that positive, I have that 3 in the denominator. So my final answer would be 5 in the numerator. That's all that's up there. And then in my denominator, I have 3 n to the third power. All right, because there was 4 n's multiplied together here, and one of them divided out with this top guy. Okay. So this is my answer after I simplify, and now I have to do my exclusion. So I'm going to say, okay, look at the denominator. All right, here's my denominator, 3n cubed. All right, well, 3n cubed, all right, if it's equal to 0, that is a problem. All right, so what value of n is going to make that 0? Okay, and if I, again, it's 3 times 0, right? is equal to 0. 3 times 0 is going to equal 0. So that means, so I've got n, right, cannot equal 0. If you have an n here all by itself, all right, being multiplied and it's a factor, then that cannot be 0 because it's a separate factor. All right, so now looking at number 5, here's a, right, and it's in the denominator by itself as a factor. So right away, I know a cannot equal 0. That's an exclusion. All right, and then now I'm going to take 9/15 and I'm going to reduce it. So I'm going to go alpha y equals, and I've got 9/15. And I'll hit enter. So that reduces to 3/5. So 9/15 is 3/5. And then a squared is a times a. And then I have the 1a on the bottom. All right, that was my original problem. All right, so the 9/15 reduces to 3/5. And then I have a squared is a times a, and then I have an a in the bottom. Well, this a divided by a is 1, so those cross out. If you have the same factor on top as you do on the bottom, that's 1, and so it goes away. And so what is left here is 3a on the top and 5 on the bottom. And notice that 2 minus 1, right, is 1. Right? If I look at my exponents, 2 minus 1, my exponent rules, 2 minus 1 is 1, and so that's why I have that 1a up on top. And then here is my exclusion. All right, and here's my simplified answer. All right, so here I'm going to have a negative answer, and then I'm going to reduce the 8/10. So I'll go alpha y equals, and I'll hit enter, and I've got 8/10, and what does that reduce to? 4/5, because they both had a factor of 2. Right? We divide the top by 2, and we divide the bottom by 2. And I'll bring out that negative there. Okay? And then again, I've got m times m times m, right? I had m cubed, and then here I have m squared. Right? So this m crosses out with that one, that m crosses out with that one, and then I'm left with this 1m. So I have negative 4m on top and 5 on the bottom. All right. So, and again, notice 3 minus 2, right? The 3, and I subtract the 2 is 1. And that's why you're subtracting, is because these cancel out. They go away. And that is my final answer. And now I need to look at the exclusion. Look at your denominator. Well, there's m as a factor all by itself, right? So that would be m equals 0. Oh, m cannot equal 0, because that would mean I'm dividing by 0. Okay, so now again we're simplifying. And then we're going to state the excluded value. So it's the same thing, all right? And then we're going to be factoring. We either do the GCD, or we've got difference of squares, and then we have trinomials that we're going to be dealing with. But remember, we can use our Pauli Schmelz to help us out, okay? We have a lot of different things that we've worked on for factoring that we could use. All right, so first of all, I've got this 14n. Well, there's nothing really you can do to simplify that. All right, but let's see what we've got here. 49n squared minus 63n. Okay, well, let's do our GCD of 49 and 63. See if there's a factor that they both have. So we'll do math. Num 9. Oh goodness, what did I forget? 49 and 63. All right, try this again. So let's see. Math now I've got to put in, oh, I forgot to put in my numbers. So 49, comma, 63, parentheses. All right, we're looking for the greatest common factor. It's 7. So I can pull out a 7 here, all right? They both have a factor of 7, right? And then they both have an n, right? They both have an n. So that is my greatest common factor, and then I have parentheses here, and let's see what is left. I have 49 divided by 7 is 7, and then now I'm subtracting, I'm dividing, so I'm going to subtract my exponents. N minus 1 is 1. And then now I have negative 63, so negative divided by positive is a negative, and 63 divided by 7 is 9, and then n divided by n, well, those are the same, so they go away. That equals 1, right? That's 1, and 1 times 9 is 9. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is always factor. I'm going to simplify, all right, my rational expression. It's a rational expression because I've got this fraction here. Okay, so now I'm going to reduce the factors. I can cancel out the factors that are the same. All right, so 14 divided by 7. All right, well, I'll do that. I can do that on my calculator, or I could put that in as a fraction if I wanted to. I could go alpha y equals, and I'll put that as 14 over 7. All right, and that's 2. All right, so that both of these divide out, and I end up with a 2 in the numerator. All right. And then I have this n is going to divide out with that n, right? Because a number divided by itself is 1. And so what's left here is this 7n minus 9, and this is my final answer. Okay. Now to look at the excluded values, what I have to do is set that equal. I have to look for the 0. All right, so I have 7n minus 9. I'm going to set it equal to 0 because that's my denominator. All right, so I'm going to add a 9 to both sides. And so I get 7n equals 9. And then I'm going to divide by 7. So n equals 9/7 is my excluded value. So that means n cannot equal 9/7. So you just make that into a not equals. All right, and this is my excluded value. All right. So now I'm going to look at this next one, b minus 2. All right, well, there's nothing really, you can't simplify b minus 2. But here I do have a common factor between the 4 and the 8. All right, so I'll do math num 9, math num 9. And I'm going to do 4, comma 8. And I get 4. So I can factor out a common factor of 4. They both have a factor of 4. So I'm going to bring that out. All right, and 4 divided by 4 is 1, so what's left is b. And then I have my minus, right? Negative divided by a positive is a negative, and then 8 divided by 4 is 2. All right, so now notice this up here, that's a factor, and this is a factor, and they're the same. So I can cross that out just like I would an n or a b or an x. And so, but I need to have I can't have a denominator without a numerator. So my final answer there would be 1/4. All right, now excluded values, I'm going to set, well, 4 can't equal 0, right? 4 is 4. So I'm going to look at this b minus 2 factor. So b minus 2, I'll set that equal to 0. All right, and get the b by itself. So b equals 2. And so that's an excluded value, so b cannot equal 2. If b is equal to 2, I would have 0 in the denominator. So that just looks sloppy, so let's, hopefully your paper looks better. So that's 1/4 is what it reduces to, and then this is the excluded value. Excluded value. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and do the next one. All right. And we're going to factor both ones. I want to get, for my factors, I want to have the x first. All right. So here, let me erase this so it's not in my way. So I want to have that to be a positive x. All right. So to make it positive, I'm just going to factor out a -1. I'm going to divide each of these by -1. So I'm going to have a -1 here, and that would be 9. And I want my x first. So negative divided by a negative is a positive, and x divided by 1 is x. All right? And then here I have 9 divided by -1 is -9. Okay? So basically, let's look at what happened there. All right, I had 9 minus x, and I flipped them around. I switched the order. All right, but remember, subtraction is not commutative. All right, if you change the order, you change the sign. All right, for example, if I have 3, actually, let me do it the other way. 8 minus 3, right? That's 5. And if I do 3 minus 8, I still get the 5, but it's -5. Okay? And so I can, if you switch the order, you're still going to get the same number, but you're going to have the opposite. And that's why we have this negative here. All right? That's why these are equal. If I switch it, I just put the negative in front, and then it's the same. So now I'm going to factor x squared minus 81. So I'm going to put that in polished melt, so that means my A1 is 1, and I've got a -81 for C. All right, so, or A2 is 1. There's no middle term, so that's a 0. And -81 is C. And now I'll hit solve. All right, so my two factors, I got -9 and +9. All right, so I have x minus 9 and x plus 9. Okay, factoring that. Well, remember, a number divided by itself is 1, so those cancel out. And so my final answer here is -1 over x plus 9. All right, and then you have to look at the denominator. All right, here's my x plus 9. So x plus 9 equals 0. Well, that would happen if x equals -9. Okay, so that means x cannot equal -9. Because if you put it in here, that would be a 0. So that's my exclusion value. Exclusionary value. All right, so we'll do one more, and then you can practice them on your own and ask for help. I've got x minus 2, cannot reduce that. And so I'm going to factor this one, x squared minus 4x plus 4. So I'm going to do my, all right, so now A2 is still 1, but A1 is, I think it's positive, -4. -4. And then that one is +4. Okay, so there's my first term, my middle term, and my last term. 1, -4, 4, and then I'll hit solve. And so I've got positive 2 for both of them. My two zeros are positive. That's a double root, right? So that means I have x minus 2. Remember, you always do, the 0 is positive 2. All right, so x minus 2 is my factor. And that was a double root, right? There was 2 of them. All right. That's my double root. And so also that tells me that x cannot equal 2, right? X cannot equal 2 because that would make that a 0, right? What I've got on my calculator are the zeros. So those are actually your exclusionary values there for the denominators, just because it was my factor.